The French Chamber of Commerce bringing business under the spotlight today and looking at getting the best out of the 2023 Rugby World Cup that will take place in France. So those businesses are looking at positioning themselves in terms of trade relations, in terms of the economics of the sports, and in ensuring that they get the best out of the Rugby World Cup, looking at those tourists that would leave South Africa and other nations to go into France to position their businesses to get the best out of the Rugby World Cup. I'm going to bring the Trade Commission, the France Trade Commission, just let us in on what we can expect, really, looking at these businesses, South African businesses, trading with, France businesses, and also looking at those that will be getting the best out of the Rugby World Cup. Welcome to the SABC, Nicole.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. What we're doing within the context of the World Rugby Cup is to have business clubs within 9 cities in France. So the idea is that South Africans are traveling for the matches, and while they're there, we can add some business side events, networking opportunities, discovering the ecosystem, very much to grow the relations between France and South Africa.
Let's talk about the importance really of these businesses positioning themselves. We know very well that there's a huge interest in terms of investments, in terms of job creation, and us getting this sector right would ensure that at least these businesses thrive both here at home, locally, and in France.
Correct. So all sectors of activity, a big focus on tech. French President Macron is actually looking to make France a startup nation. So South African companies, tech startups, entrepreneurs that are growing, that have moved from early stage to a growth stage to a late stage, they need to a next round of funding, they need to grow their market, they need to commercialize, continue the R&D. So expanding into France gives them a footstep into continental Europe and often back into Francophone Africa. We see in Anglophone Africa, sometimes it's not so easy to access West Africa. So it's very much about growing a South African company.
What barriers of trade have you picked up, as the Commission, as you go along? I know earlier on we mentioned issues of the easing of visa regulations. There were talks around us just getting the decarbonization process right in terms of mitigating against the load shedding process. In terms of those businesses and how they could thrive, where these relations between South Africa and France are concerned, what have been those trade barriers?
Trade barriers are lessening as time goes past. So we've spoken decarbonization. So France has launched a plan called France 2030, which is to lower emissions. So they have various ambitious initiatives, such as creating a low carbon aeroplane, creating many more electric vehicles on the roads. Trade barriers, once again, language is no longer a concern. We see that perhaps coming from an Anglophone country, it is something that's often brought up. In fact, when it comes to business, it hasn't been a concern yet. Visa regulations, easier for companies to get visas, business visas, intra-company mobility. So we're really looking to cross all those divides. There was a concern around corporate taxation brought up earlier. France is now on a European average, so we're seeing those barriers being dropped.
All right, Nicole, everything of the best. The countdown has really started as we speak right now. And France looking to welcome us into, the country, and those businesses are just trying to get the best out of the Rugby World Cup. Those trade barriers, they're trying to attend to them, but they were talking really around the issue of load shedding and how that has kind of spooked some investors in terms of coming into South Africa, saying that we can learn a thing or two from France in terms of the decarbonization process and how then we can ease the tax for businesses to do business together between South Africa and France, and also looking at easing these visa regulations as we look forward to the Rugby World Cup that will take place in France in September. This being between September and October. I'm Katlego, Legodi, SABC News in Sandton.